All right, let's sort through the monster in front of me. That grotesque figure with its pixelated, distorted appearance was undoubtedly my colleague, Go Young-gyun. The Goral mask was clearly visible after all. I feel bad for blasting that high-powered flashlight in her face. Clenching my teeth, I tried to focus on the mask instead of my sense of revulsion. The problem was that normal communication was impossible. I couldn't speak, nor could I properly hear what the other person was saying. There's no way we can talk anyway. The urge to destroy everything surged up to my throat like bitter bile. It felt like my head was filled with errors. This was driving me crazy. Unable to think of another way to communicate, I eventually pulled a pen out of my pocket and, avoiding looking at her directly, wrote on the floor. Then, I waited in silence. The moment Go Youngjun turned her gaze toward me, I froze. A reply appeared on the A4 paper on the floor.
Mr. Roe, dear, are you self-aware? Can you act independently?
I looked at the monster, no Go Young-gun, and wrote a response.
Don't worry, I'm not contaminated.
Although I imagine even a contaminated person might say something, so I'm concerned about how it sounds. This is all part of this ghost story's gimmick. How should I explain this? In this case, it's probably best to go straight to the point. Knowing that the colleague in front of me was clearly intelligent, I decided to forego roundabout explanations and write the direct answer instead. The solution to this ghost story that all the foreshadowing in its lore pointed toward. This is a school where a horror game has become reality. The name registered in the wiki for this ghost story, and the cause of all the events happening in this nightmare version of Sekwang Technical High School. Hints about it can be found in exploration records that uncover the lore in the faculty office and certain classrooms.
Item confiscation list. Month of unknown. Day unknown. When obtained from the first-year faculty office and turned on, a pixelated image of the school at night briefly appears on the screen before it shuts off. Memo in the top right corner of the blackboard in class 3-2.
That's supposed to be the teacher.
Notebook found on the floor of the music room. There's a small doodle in the corner. Why am I in school after waking up? A sketch of a surprised puppy.
Graduation ceremony prep? What does that even mean? It's May right now. And various other notes and items. If you search the bag of the student whose console was confiscated, you can even find an empty game case with a plot summary written on the back. The day before graduation. Students. Of course, the preparations are mostly an excuse, and the students enjoy the atmosphere of a nighttime camp. New couples form, best friends argue, and someone's secrets are exposed. Then the school broadcast comes on.
The graduation ceremony has begun. To penalize students who did not attend, the teacher is now leaving the auditorium.
The bloody graduation ceremony begins. Can they escape the nightmare school unscathed? That's how it becomes evident. This ghost story is about a horror game that devoured a real school, forcing it to replay the events of the game as a nightmare. That's why the students don't speak, because it's a game without voice acting. That's why the third-year students on the 4th floor can't leave their spots, because the main game hasn't started yet. That's why the students can't move when explorers are watching. It's a bug that wasn't part of the original game. In fact, the explorers weren't even official participants in the game. We're not playing the game at all. We were dragged in after attempting to glimpse the game's story through an unofficially downloaded text file. Of course, I didn't explain all of this in full detail to my colleague. I only shared hints and conveyed the core logic. I obtained a student uniform in an unusual way and tried becoming a participant in this horror game. For now, it seems to be working.
A game? Oh, it sounds like that one. The horror game where you're trapped in school the night before White Day. But isn't becoming a participant in the Ghost Stories game even more dangerous? Especially since you don't know what might happen if you keep wearing that uniform for too long.
Go Young-gun's writing started off energetic but became rushed and frantic toward the end. It was a reasonable concern.
You're right. If it gets dangerous, I'll stop right away.
I also planned to run for it if things didn't go as expected. But so far, things were proceeding exactly as I had anticipated. Still, this might turn out to be the most definitive clear route we can document in the manual. I'm going to give it a try. After a brief silence.
All right, then. I trust you, Mr. Roe, dear. You've always been strong against ghost stories. Seriously, it's just a misunderstanding. Still, please don't do anything too dangerous.
I'd like that too, but things in life rarely go as planned.
Then, if we stay here together, other students might grow suspicious of you, so I'll take my leave.
That was the last thing she wrote. The moment I was unfrozen, I saw Go Youngin slowly walking away down the hallway, turning her back to me.
Wait a second, Yonggun-si.
I still have things to ask you. I hurriedly caught up to her, lightly tapped her back, and hastily wrote out a new note.
Excuse me, Miss Goral. There's something I need to ask you. It's probably specialized knowledge only you can answer.
Sure, feel free to ask.
Thankfully, Go Youngin turned back and kindly agreed to answer. Grateful, I quickly scribbled out my question.
Can you tell me where each organ is located in the human body?
Fortunately, Go Youngin didn't cut me off right then and there. She simply asked me multiple questions about work, accounting, and other real-world details, calmly and sternly verifying whether I was in my right mind. Once she was convinced that I wasn't completely contaminated, or some science lab student with a morbid fascination for anatomy, she became kind again. All right, I'll answer as best I can, haha. And so, I spent the remaining time engaging in an intense Q&A session with Go Young-gyun. Thanks to her, I was able to finish my clear preparations in a safer and more certain way than I had expected.
I'll do my best, thank you.
I added one last comment, just in case.
If you plan to stay in this dream for a while longer, it might be best to stick to the first floor. Because soon, the true within the shadow of darkness will begin.
After seeing off Go Young-gun a few minutes later,
The graduation ceremony has begun.
a new broadcast echoed, just as I had written in my 13th exploration record.
Exploration Record 13. Elapsed time wearing Sekwang Technical High School's uniform, 2 hours and 13 minutes.
A new school broadcast emerged, one not described in prior logs. Its content matches the plot summary on the back of the game case of Within the Shadow of Darkness. I went up to the 4th floor. The countless third-year students who had filled the hallway there. The empty 4th floor hallway resonated with the broadcast.
To penalize students who did not attend, the teacher is now leaving the auditorium.
Just as I had written in my exploration record, the main storyline of the horror game began to unfold. It was becoming real. The atmosphere in the school changed completely. The previously comforting sense of belonging as a student had been replaced with an oppressive, unsettling tension. I could actually hear the BGM right now. The haunting 8-bit game music descended upon my ears in sharp, eerie minor tones, and then a pop-up appeared.
Before it's too late, let's look for the other students.
I knew a faster route and steeled my resolve. I ran toward the third-year faculty office. Hiding inside a locker, there was the standard move.
Something unknown.
Rejecting the deafening, ear-splitting noise, I quickly slipped inside the faculty office locker. The problem was that one of the monsters had been in a classroom next to the office on the 4th floor. The monster hesitated as it opened the door and stepped out, then looked directly at me. At my shadowed face behind the locker's door. It looks like it's wearing a mask. I couldn't move my face to get a better look. But the limited view through the locker door made it hard to discern what kind of mask it was. At any rate, they're definitely one of our company employees. The sheer number of name tags they had collected made it almost impossible to recognize them as a glitch, thanks to the light emanating from them. If it's that conspicuous, I could hear faint and heavy noises from upstairs. Specifically, the sound of something large walking with small, deliberate footsteps. It's coming down right now, right now. The fear was overwhelming. I held my breath, but the glitch, possibly attracted to my name tag, quickly moved toward me, despite my stillness. Can't they hear it? No, of course they can't. They're not players in the game. The glitch doesn't even recognize the teacher. They won't be attacked by the teacher at all. That's part of the game's rules. It doesn't acknowledge the start of the game. One way the entity, the teacher, recognizes players is through their name tags. But since explorers are essentially glitches themselves, having just 1 or 2 name tags doesn't typically register them as players. In other words, unless an explorer gets overly greedy, they don't usually get caught. By collecting a ridiculous number of name tags, a symbol of players, I remained frozen, holding my breath. The glitch approached my locker and grabbed the door. A massive, sharp metal plate slammed down on the masked glitch. Its mangled form split apart. Blood splattered across my face. Right in front of me, separated by the locker door, the vertically bisected form of a bespectacled employee fell to the ground. The glitch, now reduced to a corpse, lost its pixelated distortion, returning to a human body. When an explorer, a glitch, remains in the school until the game starts and gets discovered by the teacher, they are eliminated. It was one of the supervisors newly assigned to the D Squad. He would be eliminated in reality, too. The teacher left the faculty office while dragging the supervisor's lifeless body across the floor. I covered my mouth with my hands. It was the first time I had seen someone from my team dismembered right before my eyes. Nothing you do now will change what's happened. What you must do next also won't change. How explorers, before the exploration record you wrote, used to collect high-value items like name tags to make their presence stronger in the game or survive longer. So, what does a proper player need to do to truly clear the game? They have to see the ending. And in most games, the ending happens after the final boss battle. The time to stop being a coward. I pulled out a tattoo sticker with a tomato tree design. With trembling hands, I slapped it on my neck. It was something I got as freebies from the something.
Are there any designs related to courage or boldness? Subbles of fearlessness?
In response to that question, the tattoo artist recommended a design of a tomato tree. And that design was preserved as stickers. This is the tattoo I'm currently sticking on my neck. To be honest, it had some of the effects I expected. It felt like the fear processing part of my brain was paralyzed, making paranormal occurrences less frightening. Just like assistant manager Yoon Ha-jae and supervisor Park Min-seong before me. Their guts seemed so out of place it felt like their bravery bordered on recklessness as they fearlessly explored these supernatural horrors. Inside the locker, I blinked. It doesn't seem to have much effect, does it? I recalled the students who had chased me earlier, absolutely terrifying. I thought about the crazy red bunny mascot I encountered in the theme park ghost story. It sent shivers down my spine. I thought about the ghost who pretended to be human, sobbing and knocking on the door in the Changui ghost story. No matter what I thought of, it chilled me. Could this be a scam? Or maybe I applied the sticker wrong? After all, I've never used a tattoo sticker before, so I wouldn't know. But either way, it wasn't something I could verify right now. Either way, I still had to proceed as planned. Now that the teacher had vanished from the 4th floor, this was my chance. They must have gone downstairs. In the end, I swallowed hard and stepped out of the locker. Of course, the sight before me would be gruesome. The bloodstains and flesh chunks of the newly assigned D-Squad supervisor, who had just died, would be scattered, so I braced myself as I stepped out. I quickly left the faculty office and headed up to the 5th floor. The very reason I avoided the 5th floor was laid bare before me. The walls of the 5th floor were now plastered with pages from old graduation albums, and the students in the photos wore agonized expressions, their arms reaching out toward the outside world. Beyond the torn fragments of the graduation album, writhing chunks of flesh were visible. The 5th floor itself was a source of immense psychological burden and panic for anyone who entered. It looked less like a school and more like a grotesquely twisted alternate reality. The places where light fixtures should have been pulsated with a red glow. No, what? This is crazy. Where there should have been human heads, there were tomatoes attached. No, it wasn't like they didn't seem human. The people in the graduation album photos, they still looked like people, faces distorted in pained screams. But somehow, they just felt like tomatoes. It made no logical connection to fear, and this rational voice transformed directly into an emotional reaction. Yeah, that's exactly how it felt. As I walked further down the hallway, the graduation albums went further back in time, and the graduates melted into even more grotesque and inhuman forms, solidifying into the walls. The walls and ceiling pulsed with strange talismans and chunks of flesh. This is all just game lore. Hearing it now wouldn't change anything. I walked down the hallway feeling almost cheerful, as though I were on a casual stroll. Everything being tomatoes made it a little amusing. And at the end of the hallway, I stopped in front of a massive door to the right. A neat teal-colored iron door. It was the only thing maintaining its original form in this grotesque 5th-floor maze. It was the door to the auditorium. The place where this game's final chapter would unfold.
Graduates only. Please knock before entering.
Am I not considered a graduate since I'm set as a first year in Class 5? This kind of thing is just a gimmick activated by an item, though, and I already have it. Something you'd normally acquire only after fully playing through the game and reaching the final chapter.
Would you like to use the name tag ornament?
I pinned the name tag ornament to my chest and knocked on the auditorium door. Then the massive door before me slid open smoothly. Hundreds of third-year students sitting in hundreds of seats turned to look at me. This year's graduates. They were partially melted and fused with their chairs, black ink-like tears streaming from their eyeless faces. I felt no emotion beyond pity. In this situation, that's all I should feel. They can't harm me anyway. Irrational fear had been replaced with tomatoes, and I walked along the path between the chairs. Toward the giant stage on the opposite side, adorned with a graduation ceremony banner. The graduates turned their heads to stare at me expressionlessly as I walked past them. I ascended the stage. Grabbing the standing microphone installed in the center, I shouted.
Let the graduation ceremony begin.
As if on cue, bright and grandiose event music began to play in response to my declaration. The graduation march starts to play. Screams erupted in the auditorium. A la-da-da, la-da-da, as if peeling away a facade. The intact appearance of the auditorium was stripped away, revealing its grotesque and distorted true form. The horrific scenes I had witnessed in the fifth-floor hallway emerged before me. As if in a final outburst of fury, the imagery seemed to lash out, eager to punish the one disrupting its order. Me, but it didn't faze me. After all, everything looked like tomatoes, and the greater danger was just about to begin. The sound of crazed footsteps storming up from below to forcibly drag the student who dared to start the graduation ceremony without permission back to their seat. The sound of footsteps barreling upward. The teacher is coming. I've done everything I needed to before it arrives. I pulled a stick-type auto-injector from my pocket and jabbed it into my arm. The ultra-potent single-use painkiller injected its neon-colored liquid into my veins with an artificial, cheerful wave. A wave of comforting and refreshing vigor coursed through my body, light as air. Simultaneously, I popped 2 nostalgia candies into my mouth.
Take no more than 3 at a time. Nostalgia might overwhelm you and drag you under.
I even followed the dosage instructions. Now, I was in the best and most perfect state imaginable. Through the crack in the auditorium door, something forced its way in. The teacher reached its deformed hand, fused with a chalkboard, through the gap, tearing apart the metal door itself. The door crumpled and fell away, and there it stood, revealed, a massive humanoid figure, but only a silhouette. It looked as though multiple teachers had been crumpled together, stitched, and forcibly shoved back into a mold resembling a human. Walking into the auditorium with disturbingly deliberate steps. Chalkboards, textbooks, student rosters, chalk, and glasses haphazardly attached to various body parts swayed with each movement. Standing on the opposite side of the stage, I observed its grotesque form. All I felt was boiling determination. If I could overcome this, I could return home and fill up the collector. This situation didn't require fear but relentless tenacity. The tattoo on my neck burned hot, fueling my guts, heart, and mind. The tattoo sticker's effect was an overflow of adrenaline, a surge of exhilaration, driving me to pursue any goal with ferocious intensity, and paired with a strange perception that turned everything into tomatoes. Without hesitation, I grabbed the auditorium microphone and stared ahead. Well, I was hit, but instead of losing my head, just half of my right hand was severed. I was a little surprised, but there was no pain. No mental shock. It felt as if I were watching a tomato being crushed. The courage to let reason triumph over instinct, and a burning determination. I'll succeed no matter what. This horror game isn't action-based. While basic gaming reflexes are necessary for chase sequences, the core gameplay revolves around puzzles and deduction. As the player progresses through the game, they acquire various abilities to use in the final chapter. To counter the teacher's attacks, the player must solve puzzles and endure at the microphone until the graduation song concludes. But as an explorer, such progression was impossible for me. I only borrowed a uniform, I'm not a real student. I pulled out my glass handgun and fired. The transparent small-caliber weapon I received from a Disaster Management Bureau agent worked with decent effect. A bullet struck the teacher's shoulder, eliciting a pained scream. but it didn't seem to inflict significant damage. Well, it wasn't exactly top-tier equipment. The goal was to throw off its aim. The rusty chalkboard slammed into me, severing my left foot. Still, I didn't move. I just stood there, clutching the microphone. Blood gushed from my wounds, soaking the stage. Right. With human strength alone, it was impossible to evade or overpower that monster's attacks. After all, I wasn't Chief Lizard. But that didn't mean there was no way. I just have to stop caring. The rest of my right hand disappeared up to the wrist. Unbothered, I aimed the glass-handled pistol with my left hand and fired again.
A letter! Listen to your teacher. Sit down. This is the graduation ceremony. I am in charge. A letter! Letter!
My left thigh exploded. Both legs were now gone. I'm out of bullets. I slid downward, still gripping the standing microphone. The left hand holding the pistol was severed, but I clung to the microphone stand with the rest of my body. Using my remaining left elbow, I climbed up the microphone stand. Blood splattered violently. The graduation music has stopped. Just as the teacher raised its grotesque chalkboard hand to strike again, I shouted into the microphone.
Congratulations on your graduation.
The auditorium filled with a pixelated holographic shower of flowers. The monstrous teacher let out a final scream before melting away. The grotesque shapes that had overtaken the auditorium vanished as if consumed by flames. Even the chairs that had trapped the students. The now liberated third-year students exploded out of the auditorium, racing toward freedom. Tears of joy and relief streamed from their eyes. In the original bad ending, they would have all turned into the teacher's zombified minions, killing any remaining explorers. But this time, the ending is different. The curtains of the auditorium drew back, revealing soft yellow and red light streaming in from outside.
Graduation of liberation.
So, this is the ending. Next, an evaluation of my performance during the final chapter appeared below.
Graduation of liberation.
I checked the Dream Essence collector. Golden liquid sparkled inside, rich and dazzling, as vibrant as during the Tuesday talk show. A thrilling sense of accomplishment washed over me. As I swallowed the last fragment of candy lingering on my tongue, my consciousness began to fade, a smile curling my lips. No, I would return to myself lying in bed, having successfully cleared the ghost story and escaped. I would drift into a restful sleep and wake up in the morning. The manual's still inside my tattoo inventory, it seems. Should I take it out? Since when have I been hearing this voice? No, it's not that I'm hearing it. I'm the one speaking. Has the manual been in my tattoo this whole time? Why have I been casually brushing aside the teacher's intrusive thoughts, treating them as natural? Why did I suddenly feel indifferent about visiting the Fox counseling room after the next exploration, despite previously being concerned about side effects? Why do I now think of the eerie, incomprehensible entity I once called a good friend as my most comforting confidant? Without any inherent unease or sense of caution, I can't allow myself to be consumed now. But already, my doubts were fading. As the nostalgia candy's effects wear off, the present version of me was reclaiming its place. The contamination is creeping in. In the hazy sensation of floating on the edge of wakefulness, I struggled. You are being Contamina. I woke up drenched in cold sweat. A deep sigh of relief escaped my lips. But at the same time, a faint chill of unease lingered as if I'd forgotten something.
You're awake, friend!
In a panic, I bolted upright and rescued Braun from beneath my pillow just before he was about to get squashed flat. Then I flopped back onto the bed, arms spread wide. Exhaustion and comfort overlapped as a grin spread across my face. Anyway, it seems I've made it back safely. The morning after clearing a horrific high school ghost story horror game. Still, the fact that he had to go to work, a reality more haunting than the ghost story itself, meant I was busily preparing to head out. This time, though, the commute didn't feel as burdensome, because I had something to rely on. The A-grade liquid filling the Dream Essence collector. I carefully packed the Dream Essence collector, brimming with golden liquid, into my briefcase. It was the fruit of my labor from the night before. Moreover, as he fully rose from bed, I noticed a rather peculiar extra reward. Something that had been covering me spilled onto the floor. They were transparent, like they could be loaded into the glass-handled pistol. I picked one up to examine it closely and read the single Chinese character inscribed within it. This reads as, Whew, I think? This is a commonly used character symbolizing protection or defense. Fairly straightforward and intuitive. This is the reward for clearing the game's final chapter.
Graduation ceremony successfully completed. 2 deaths, 1 survivor. Members of the field exploration team who died as students confirmed to have safely awakened the next morning. A large number of reward items discovered at the bedside of the sole survivor. Analyzed to be a type of protective charm with minor effects in exorcism and defense.
In other words, I had brought items from the dream game into reality. Just like when Baek Deok-soo swiped that fountain pen item from the faculty office and ran off with it. Thinking about that, I stepped out to the entrance. Baek Deok-soo's shoes were already gone. He's already bolted to work, figures I'll catch up with him later. Anyway, the dozens of glass beads seem to function as protective charms to some extent. I'm sure they'll come in handy. I tucked all the protective charms into my tattoo inventory, keeping just 1 or 2 in my pocket, then continued preparing for work. A strange silence seemed to hang in the air.
Oh, calling for me, are you, friend?
Were you uncomfortable last night? The host of the Tuesday quiz show, whose stuffing had nearly been flattened because Soleum used him as a pillow.
Haha, well, it wasn't exactly the best feeling of my life. Anyone would feel a bit slighted if their friend had such a fun and extraordinary experience alone without inviting them.
But no matter! It seems my friend had a special time of his own while this brawn was having the unique experience of feeling like a waffle!
It was a special time indeed. The graduation ceremony was quite intense.
A graduation ceremony? Did you give a congratulatory speech?
The teacher didn't like my hosting style and attacked me. I had to endure losing limbs one by one until it ended safely. Though initially offended, Braun quickly grew excited as I explained in detail what had transpired in the dream. I'll make it up to him later with that aromatherapy massage-like thing the tattoo artist did in the evening.
A most commendable attitude, Mr. Rodeer! I'd love to hear more!
On my way to work, I recounted everything that had happened to me, from being chased by students to becoming one of them myself. Finally, as he arrived at the building and began heading up to his office, he ran into a familiar face.
Section Chief Lee Byung-jin.
It was Lee Byung-jin, the manual revision officer Soleum had rescued from the Changui ghost story. He lit up at the sight of me.
So, the entire field exploration team attempted to enter this ghost story with decent item yields this time.
So he already knew about my involvement in the high school ghost story. Well, it's not surprising. There was even an official directive for the entire field exploration team to attempt entry.
What happened to your squad, Soleum?
Oh, I went in and came back, but I'm not sure about the others.
I doubted Chief Lizard managed to enter. If he had, it would have definitely been written in the something. Actually, no. They wouldn't have even bothered recording it. After all, the perfect counter to this ghost story is Lee Jae-hyun. A pursuit-based ghost story is meaningless for someone who can just destroy everything with brute force. There's no point in ruining the ghost story mechanics. Even if my involvement caused some butterfly effect during the exploration, I would have noticed if Chief Lizard had been part of this expedition. One other member of D Squad didn't make it out alive.
Oh, right. There are only 2 people left in D Squad now. Squad leader and you, Supervisor Soleum, right? I guess you didn't run into each other. Still, it's a solo mission, huh? Well, at least our company's future is in capable hands with the talented Supervisor Soleum. Ha.
Wait a second. When you say there are only 2 people left in D Squad.
Huh? Oh, wasn't the personnel decision temporarily put on hold?
The section chief looked at me quizzically.
You know, D Squad was told to focus on something. Didn't you get that notice?
In that moment, I realized something. Supervisor Yoon Jo-hoon, the newly assigned member. He had been eliminated as a glitch by the teacher in the dream, and was erased in reality as well, as if he had never existed in the first place. That's why people mistakenly believe there were no fatalities in this ghost story. At worst, they thought people who were retired were just dragged back to the school on the next new moon. Everyone believed this. Those who collected a lot of name-tags and stubbornly stayed on the higher floors without retiring were all dummited. They became people who had never existed. An unnerving ability to manipulate reality. No wonder the essence was rated a grade. It felt as though a deeper darkness was at work here. A chill ran down my spine. Objectively, this situation might not seem bad for me. After all, someone difficult to work with had conveniently disappeared. It's no different from having their existence erased. Why am I the only one who remembers? Shouldn't we all have forgotten? Could it be because I witnessed his death directly? Or maybe it was because I had eaten the nostalgia candy at the time, and its effects shielded me. Come to think of it, when I ate the nostalgia candy,
I must have been mistaken about something.
Anyway, it wasn't something important, so I decided to refocus on the conversation. Even if he was from a different team, a superior was still a superior. At that moment, Section Chief Lee Byongjin, looking slightly expectant, asked me,
Oh, by the way, Soleum C, what grade did you clear with? If you show me your collector, I can estimate the liquid concentration and tell you the grade.
I readily pulled the collector from my briefcase and showed it to him. The golden liquid shimmered as it sloshed.